Yeah. Taoiseach, I'm a little bit out of breath because I was out joining the students who were out protesting outside, many tens of thousands of them. So just give a little shout out for them. They're keen that you hear them in terms of their opposition to fees and this student loan or the potential for a student loan scheme. I just mentioned that in passing, and I support them 100%. I hope you do. But I'll be at another protest this evening, which relates directly to your position in Europe and the European Council, and that protest is in relation to Syria and the appalling atrocities that are taking place there. And the protest is going to be making a very specific demand or call on you to speak out and condemn all, and I want to underline all, bombing, military intervention, support for warring factions in Syria or in other conflict areas in the Middle East, very particularly Yemen, or for that matter, in Iraq. Now, the need for this to become a priority and for you to speak out loudly on the public stage in Europe, and indeed to the United States and to Russia, is the urgency of that, I think, is something that hardly needs to be stated. In Syria, we have 470,000 estimated deaths. We have between 7 and 11 million members of the Syrian population displaced out of a population of 22 million. We have the utterly appalling Russian and Assad assault on Aleppo, which is an obscene action by any standard whatsoever, and must stop, and stop immediately. So the urgency for you to speak out and for Ireland to play a role on the international stage in speaking out against these atrocities is absolutely urgent. But it's very, very important, in my opinion, Taoiseach, and this is the point of the protest, that we are absolutely even-handed, consistent in our humanitarianism and in our opposition to war. What the Russians and Assad are doing in Aleppo, and what they've done to their own population, who rose up in a peaceful popular revolt against a brutal regime, which is what the Assad regime is appalling. Absolutely beyond words in its horror. But equally, other powers have now cynically manipulated the civil war that has erupted in Syria to try and further their own interests. And we must be absolutely consistent in opposing their bombing, their manipulation and their actions, which are serving only their strategic and political interests and which are making an already bad situation worse and effectively pouring petrol on a blazing fire. It is noticeable that some people are very one-sided in their condemnation. So I just want to repeat this. We must condemn utterly the barbarity of the Russian and Assad intervention. But consistency and authenticity in our opposition to horror and war requires us to equally condemn US bombing. For example, the bombing in Manbij, which claimed the lives of 60 people in July, 60 civilians, and indeed which helped scupper a ceasefire. No condemnation from, for example, the Fianna Fail motion that has been submitted of that atrocity. No condemnation of the 20 civilians killed in Damascus by a US bombing. No condemnation of the 43 bombing assaults by the United Kingdom. No condemnation of the bombing by France, which has killed dozens and dozens of civilians. No condemnation of the fact that the US, France and Britain are selling arms to Saudi Arabia, continue to do so, billions worth of arms, which they are using to support groups like the Al-Nusra Front, who are up to their eyes in the horror that is going on in Syria, or for that matter, the appalling Saudi bombing of Yemen, which is producing a humanitarian crisis just as bad as that in Syria, and which the US are directly involved in themselves. So that's what I'm asking. I've just gone over this.
Yeah, that's the point.
10 seconds before I finish.
Yeah, but I knew you were in full flight. I was alerting you.
So, Taoiseach, I am asking you to use your platform within the European Union to condemn all bombing and to call for all foreign military intervention to cease in Syria and in the wider region.